People reject creation because they can't poke and probe God. They can't place him under a microscope and observe his structure or take a biopsy and run it for analysis. He can't be proven to exist by scientific means, so therefore, he does not exist. However, it's essential for evolution that life started from lifeless chemicals. An unknown process worked upon these chemicals, spontaneously creating the first flickers of life. This process has never been observed, and therefore has never been proven to have taken place. Evolution is said to be driven by two main processes: genetic mutation and natural selection. However, an organism can only ever develop as far as its genes allow it to. A lizard cannot become a bird because it does not have the genes to allow it to develop wings or feathers. Therefore, for one organism to develop into another, evolution's two main processes must introduce new genetic information into that organism.
Ouch!
This has never been observed, and therefore has never been proven to be possible. There has never been found any true transitional fossils. The only fossils found have been of fully formed, fully functioning animals. If the evolutionary process is correct, then it would be logical to assume that over millions of years, there should have been ample opportunity for at least hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of fossils to have formed which display transitional evidence such as scales which are somewhere between being a true scale and a true feather. But not even one true transitional fossil has ever been found. These are but a few of the many flaws and shortfalls in the theory of evolution. Yet, where people will reject God so quickly because he cannot be scientifically proven to exist, yet this same criteria can be said of evolution, and yet people continue to believe it to be true. This seems to be inconsistent at best and downright hypocritical at worst. So why do well-educated, highly intelligent people continue to support this contradiction? Because to do so means they must blithely overlook evolution's many shortfalls. And to add insult to injury, we even have some who are willing to go to the extreme length of actually claiming that evolution has been proven. As we have already seen, the answer to our question can't be that the burden of proof lies stacked in favor of evolution. After all, if the two pillars which keep evolution aloft cannot be proven to act in a manner which allows one organism to develop into another, then everything else that evolutionists place on top of those pillars have to be considered in doubt at best. So why do these people continue to insist that evolution is correct? After all, if this same attitude was displayed in the fields of observational science, then these same people would have been laughed out of the laboratory a long time ago. There are two main influences in our answer. The first is simply the lack of alternatives. The basis for evolution is to explain how life came to exist in the form that we see it in today's world without the need for any intelligent influence, namely God. So it is therefore safe to assume that anyone who rejects the existence of God has only one option left open to them, namely evolution. Sun Tzu in his book, The Art of War, states that when fighting an enemy, you should always leave them a means of escape. If you don't, and they are backed into a corner, then your enemy will redouble their efforts in fighting back. Since evolution is the only option for those wanting to reject God, then it effectively means that they have backed themselves into a corner. So what does this then mean for the evolutionist? Basically, when evolution is maligned, evolutionists will redouble their efforts in retaliation, simply because they have no other option but to make the evidence fit in to the already assumed truth of the evolutionary framework. If evolution is shown to be a lie, then they have no fallback position. They have found themselves in a do or die scenario. This attitude in turn becomes very dangerous for scientific integrity. Because when people are desperate, they will resort to all kinds of dubious responses. Data is reclassified as corrupted simply because it does not support evolutionary doctrine. Broad-reaching assumptions are accepted that have little or no evidence to support them. Notable evolutionary supporters chant their mantra of, "It's been proven," so often that people simply begin to believe what they are saying, despite having no firm foundation from which to support their claim. In other words, when you have no alternatives, you will say and do almost anything in order to make sure that your one and only option at least remains viable. When we look at things from this perspective, then it is easy to see why people will quite willingly overlook the many flaws and shortfalls in evolution. It's got nothing to do with evidence or science, but simply survivability. After all, if these people had an alternative that didn't include God, then evolution would have been shelved a long time ago. Our second influence is one that may not be immediately apparent: peer pressure. Early scientists believed that the work they were carrying out was to help shed light on the works and processes that God used in creating our world. In today's world, however, science simply regards God as being unscientific. This is reflected in the world at large, where rejection of God continues to become more and more common. These attitudes, in turn, have led to widespread discrimination and persecution towards creationists in the sciences and in the world at large. For someone who is trying to make their way, particularly within the realm of science, and they see the detrimental attitudes people have towards creationists, then it can simply be this attitude that pressures them into supporting evolution. Because they are more concerned with avoiding the stigma of being a creationist than whether or not the evidence supports the evolutionary line of thinking. Then we have the high-profile proponents of evolution. People who have become notable in their field and then by happenstance or design, begin to beat the evolutionary drum. Media love to pick up on these people, so their popularity ends up going beyond their scientific prowess simply because of their antics rather than of any irrefutable evolutionary evidence that they have presented. It is then this popularity which influences people into believing what these figureheads are claiming. So if they say often enough that evolution is proven, people just accept it as true, purely based on their popularity rather than on proof. So since media popularity is so important in some people's minds, to go against those championing the evolutionary cause means that you aren't just going against the theory of evolution, but also against the full weight of that popularity. For many people, this in itself can be a daunting prospect, and so many will simply acquiesce, since this is the line of least resistance. The result of all this? Peer pressure. Pressure to conform to the evolutionary line of thinking, because to do otherwise will most likely be detrimental to your scientific future. When people overlook, ignore, and work around the shortfalls in something, in this case evolution, just because of a lack of alternatives, or because they simply want to avoid receiving damage to their reputation, then the adage, "Going where the evidence leads," is completely nullified. So, as the observable sciences discover more and more about the world and the universe in which we live, we will see in ever greater quantities evidence that leads directly to there being a creator God, which in turn will force evolutionists to make wilder and wilder claims in an attempt to neutralize this evidence. As humans, we spend so much time thinking and planning for our future. What sort of job will I do? Where can I earn the most money? How can I remain healthy? How can I make sure I have enough money for when I retire? Yet all too often, people think little, if anything, about, is there more to this life than what we can see? Is there a spiritual aspect to things? Is there life after death? If you currently hold evolutionary beliefs and you pride yourself in having an inquiring mind, then you owe it to yourself to not simply dismiss what is in this video, but to research and confirm the assumptions that you currently have. So I would encourage you to view some of the other videos on this channel, or to go to other channels such as Answers in Genesis, where you will find much more on why research and evidence continues to point ever more strongly toward creation than evolution. Your future truly does hinge on it.